Radical! Welcome to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. Each week, join the gnarly Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print on demand industry and equip you with the totally tubular tools, advice, and strategies you need to achieve success and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now on to this week's Totally Tubular show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Print on Demand cast, episode 87, and we have another guest on this episode that's been a guest before, is a guest again, and really excited to talk with him. Actually, a customer requested episode that she requested. When I say customer, I mean listener. She's not our customer. Apparently, I'm still in work mode. She's a listener. But we met her this last week at the Graphic Pro Expo in Denver. We'll get to that shortly. But before that, Taite Ross joins me, as always, from the room, behind the door, behind me. So, Taite, happy Monday, man. How has things been going? Today seems like another crazy Monday.
Yeah, it really was. Finally got our whole staff back today. Had somebody, one of our staff members got in a car accident last week and was out from Tuesday through Friday. So our production manager was he was taking on that particular department and trying to coordinate. Had a lot of DTG orders going on. So he was trying to coordinate, but also trying to do sublimation. And it was quite the week. But today we had everybody back. And so seemed to knock out a lot of orders that were like almost, finished or had been started. But so got a lot of stuff done today, having everybody back. And then towards the end of the day, Josiah, you launched a new store. We just posted about it on the Make Your Mark design page. Why don't you tell them about that and what's going on with that store?
Yeah, so go check that out on the Make Your Mark Design Facebook page. But there is a guy's name is Cody Wilson, and he runs a Facebook page here. He's a freelance meteorologist. Easy for me to say. He's a weatherman, but he doesn't work for a particular news station or anything like that. He just posts updates to his Facebook page. And I noticed
he's got a podcast too, I think, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. He does have a podcast where he kind of goes over, weather forecasts. I've actually, to be fair, not heard much of his actual podcast before, but I know that he does have one. But I was actually made aware of him through Josh's wife, Carly, I believe. Josh is a mutual friend of Travis and myself. So made aware of his page. And she was like, he's really accurate weather forecasts and better than all the news stations. So I just gave him a casual follow. And then I realized that he's got he's gained 5,000 followers since the last time I looked, which is crazy. He has 95,000 followers. And he has a very unique personality and he says a lot of funny stuff. I noticed that in his Facebook posts, some of the words he uses, his sense of humor. And so I just thought, I'm just going to, throw a line out there and see if he's even interested in doing merch. And I pitched him and I said, listen, I'm one of your followers. Some of the stuff you say is hilarious. I noticed there's some consistent things that you say that should probably go on some merch. And he responded to me and said, hey, I can't promise anything, but I'm interested. Let's have a conversation. So it's been a back and forth for a handful of weeks. Got some designs made for him. Helped him create the store, and he's going to link it to his webpage. But he launched it today, and it's been up for an hour, and he's got 72 shares, 539 reacts, and 107 comments on this Facebook post, which is crazy. It's so wild to me. I mean,
he's a weatherman. He's a freaking weatherman.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
But, I mean, I think we've talked about this before, where a high follower count doesn't necessarily impress me anymore. If someone's like, hey, this guy's got 150,000 followers, I like to go to the posts they make. I like to read the comments that are left, and I like to see if they're interactive with their followers. Cody is incredibly interactive with his followers, and so it's built a lot of loyalty, trust, relationship, friendship, even over a screen, which is crazy. So he's got a lot of loyal followers. Yeah, so he launched his store today, and so things have been kind of blowing up. I would anticipate overnight there'll probably be some more traction that happens, but it's always exciting to see when that happens. And he's the kind of guy that wants to keep releasing content, kind of dripping it over time to get people to come back to his page. I think a lot of people do that where they're like, hey, I want 97 designs up front. I want everything I've ever thought of in life to be in this store right now. And you have to kind of talk them out of the idea of launching so much at first and leaving some stuff that can intrigue the consumer to come back. So there's tons of reasons behind that. We won't get into them because it's not the topic of this episode. But you mentioned the production manager filling in for everything last week as one of our workers was out. And so they're so busy. I mean, I was doing some production last week as well. Kind of, getting the old printing rust off and getting things pre-treated and printed and ready to go. So, but you mentioned production and production manager, and that's actually who we have on the show today. Travis, tell everyone who's on the show, why they're on the show, and then we'll bring him on the show.
Well, not only did we have a busy week last week, we also talked about last week how we were going to go to the Graphics Pro Expo that was in Denver last Thursday and Friday. And so so you and myself and Tate, actually, we went to the Graphics Pro Expo. And while we were there, before we were there, you'd gotten a message on our Instagram that said, hey, I'm going to be at the Denver show and would love to meet you guys, from a listener that you talked about earlier. Her name's Kate. And she actually works at another print shop or down just basically south of us in kind of South Denver, where we're more North Denver. And so we actually hung out. Hey, there she is. Yeah. And there's all four of us at the GPX show there. And it was really great getting to meet her. She's got a really great head on her shoulders. She knows kind of what she wants to do. She understands what she doesn't know. And so she asks questions that are really pointed and content rich. And we had a really great discussion with her. I told her, man, I would love to hire her. She's just really on the ball with all that. So anyway, while we were talking, she was just mentioning how she would love some more detailed explanations of some of our staff, and in particular the production manager. And so we decided after that we were going to do that. And so today we were just like, hey, Tate, why don't you stay late today and
we'll give you a beer and you can record as if you don't get enough of talking to us from 8:30 to 5:30. We're going to subject you to talking more to us. But there's alcohol. So I think that was the line. Real quick before we before we bring him on, I wanted to also shout out Kate's Instagram. If you guys are listening and you want to check out Kate, see what she's up to, you can go to Kate's Collabs on Instagram. That's K, the number 8, S Collabs. She's, again, like Travis said, fantastic conversation. She's trying to kind of do her own thing where she's helping supplement and help other print shops with people who need stuff done, because she's had noticed a huge need in the industry for that. So give her a follow. Super thankful that we got to meet and chat with her there at the Graphics Pro Expo. So without further ado, we are going to bring on the Make Your Mark design production manager and Travis's son, the boss's son, who sits right there in the bullpen with us, Taite Ross. Tate, welcome back to the Print on Demand cast.
Hello. How are you guys doing?
Well, we're good.
I feel so underprepared. You guys have all these cool lights, and I'm just here with my
embroidery machine.
With your best almost took a baseball bat to a few months ago.
Yeah. See, Tate understands why embroidery turns you into functioning alcoholic.
Yep. Well, we had to put him somewhere else because he couldn't record sitting at the desk right behind you. So we just shoot him into the embroidery cave.
Yeah, we actually took into consideration production quality. for this episode
for the first time,
as
It's the
opposed
first time
to
for everything.
well, because usually
Episode 84.
if there's three of us,
87.
Oh, sorry.
if there's three of us that are doing something and we're all in the same vicinity, we will just sit in a room and chat, and it's very low maintenance, right? So, and the other thing about Kate, real quick, shout out to her. She specifically mentioned the shop tour, which was the most last second shambled together thing that Travis and I have ever done in the history of this podcast. And she was
Episode
like,
83.
it was fantastic. And I was like, she is a true diehard fan because that was all over the place. But anyway, Tate, welcome to the show. Travis, why don't we get into everyone's favorite segment? Since we have a guest on the show, we told Tate that he had to bring a dad joke with him as well. So that means that it's the time for this week's weekly dad joke.
Time for the weekly dad joke.
All right. Let's you know what? Let's let the guest go first.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, me?
Give us yes.
I don't want to set the bar too high or low.
Well, it's okay. We'll make it through. If you outshine us, it just makes you look good.
Okay. Well, I did some 5 minutes of research, and I couldn't find a good joke, but I did find a good statement and more a question.
Okay.
So I'm just curious. I was thinking the other day, I was out at the lake, and I was thinking, why aren't jet skis called motorcycles? This is a serious topic that I really want to raise awareness to. I think I might actually launch a store, so keep an eye out for motorcyclesunited.com.
Motorcycles. He's
Motorcycles
going to unionize the motorcycle.
Unionize the motorcycles. I don't even own a motorcycle or a jet ski, whatever you want to call it. So I'll have to purchase one, get in the club.
I like it.
I like it. I feel like, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, Josiah. He's a chip off the old block there.
He is, from the dad jokes to the hair, all of it. It's all very similar. All right.
So
all right,
anyway,
Travis, give us.
I'll go for it.
Yeah, you do it.
Yeah. So as I mentioned last week, I'm actually in a band, and while we do all covers, occasionally, I'll write something. So I actually wrote a song about a tortilla, but actually it's more of a rap.
And that's this week's weekly dad joke. Little peek behind the scenes, dear listeners. When Travis said that, I died laughing.
He did.
For some reason, it hit me inside where it counts. It was funny. So we had to share that with you guys. So, all right. As we mentioned before, this week's main event, Taite Ross, is with us. He was a guest on episode 43 of the Print on Demand cast, and we want to kind of go through your job description, right, Travis? We're going to kind of break it down. Yeah. Kate said, give me more specifics, and Kate, we raised you his entire job description. So buckle in, because you're going to hear it all. So here we go. Travis, take it away.
Well, before we do that, I feel like we, if you haven't seen episode 43, we always ask everybody what their pod story is. And so, Tate, can you give us kind of an abbreviated, like, how did you get into print on demand? I mean, I know they could go back and listen to episode 43, but I think we have a lot of listeners that maybe haven't been with us that long, and so they may not know who you are. And for their benefit, let's go ahead and just share a little bit about what got you started in the print on demand industry.
Yeah. First exposure was me walking downstairs to ask you something at our house, and you were in the corner making coffee mugs. And pretty soon after that, you hired me on to start kind of helping out in the basement, literally just making coffee mugs. Mm-hmm. I thought it was the weirdest thing in the world that people would buy, a coffee mug with these funny sayings on it. And then pretty soon after that, a few months later, we purchased space, or you did a space in Longmont, worked there for about a year. We expanded into a little bit of DTG, but we got out of the production business kind of right before COVID hit, kind of the January 2020. And I wasn't working in the print on demand space for that whole kind of pandemic lockdown. And then in, what was it, November 2nd of, was that 2020?
2020. Yep. 2020.
Yeah, 2020. I helped him move into this current space. It really was just kind of like, hey, I need extra hands. And I was like, okay, I can, take some time off my other job at the time, and helped out, moved some stuff in. But they liked my leadership and kind of taking control of some of the situations, and my previous experience. So as a request of, you guys call him Uncle Mike and Aunt Jackie, they were like, you should hire Tate. And so did an interview, got hired as the production manager, and I've just kind of learned all the machines, all the new stuff that came with this current space, and I've just kind of grown my knowledge base from what I learned previously in the sublimation kind of exclusivity.
Yeah. And I would also say you've taken those, you've kind of helped dial in some of that, and where we had issues with, for example, I remember, the vinyl machine, and how we get our, everything we need, the files that we need from our clients. You helped us kind of dial that in and redo some of that. And that was not just vinyl that you helped us with that. You really kind of got in there and saw, okay, this part of the system doesn't really work that well. And I think if we did it this way, it would be better. And I think that's some of the leadership potential. Mike and Jackie and myself, we all saw in you when we were moving in, and you were like, hey, I think we should organize the room this way. And then we get halfway there and we'd be like, wait, what if we did it this way? No, yeah, definitely. I think this is the way we do it. And okay, will you do that? Will you do that? And let's come together. And you kind of just, grabbed the bull by its horns and really went for it. And I think that's, primarily what the leadership that we saw in you. You weren't afraid to speak up and direct people to get the most out of the situation, which I think is a great, quality of a production manager. So we're going to just talk about your job description. We're going to read basically kind of the job summary, and then we're just going to read kind of bullet points of what your job description is. And then if you will kind of fill in the blanks with what that means and what you do to accomplish that part. Now, full disclosure, we have not updated this job description in probably a year since we hired you. And there are probably things on here that you do that are not on here. Or there's probably things on here that you do differently. And there's probably things on here, or probably things that aren't on here that you do. I said do. But we'll get to that. Josiah, why don't you share kind of, or start us off with like the job summary for Tate?
Sure. Yeah. So the job purpose or job summary, as Travis said, the production lead team member serves several roles, including executing the weekly duties of warehouse operations, product manufacturing, and product shipping, reports to the operations manager. And so now we'll get into kind of some of the responsibilities and the duties. You started
duties.
Let's talk about let's talk about what you do. Here at the company.
All right.
Let's get away from us. Well, let me just start. I just want to start before we actually start reading off the actual bullet points. I'm just curious, when you hear that, Tate, the production lead team member serves several roles, including executing weekly duties of warehouse operations, product manufacturing, and product shipping. Do you think that kind of encompasses what you do, or do you think it's lacking, or what are your thoughts on that general statement that kind of encompasses all the rest of the bullet points that we're going to get into?
I think overall, I mean, it's a good broad statement. I mean, if you told that to somebody, they'd be like, what does that mean? But I think that's kind of the purpose of that broad statement. It can be applied to any number of different shops. Like you could use that, copy and paste anywhere. And that works well for what I think a production manager is. I mean, at the end of the day, their job is to make sure that the production is getting done in the manner that is high quality and in a timely manner. And so whatever that requires, of the person, definitely varies on, the print methods you have, the scale of your shop, how many employees you're managing. I've listened to some other podcasts where they have multiple production managers, and it's like, hey, you're just responsible for one department, so their whole focus is just on like screen printing, for example, or something like that. And it can definitely vary, but I think for what I'm doing at this current shop and this, in this year, I think that covers it pretty well.
Okay, cool. You're muted, Josiah.
I am muted.
There you
It was
are.
my cough mic, and then I didn't unmute it. So we're going to get into the bullet points now. The first one of which, print daily order labels and tracking non-stocked orders to completion in a timely manner. So what we're going to do here is we're going to read off a bullet point, and then Tate kind of unpack that and expound on what exactly that means, like practically in the day-to-day of your job.
So our current method for fulfilling orders for the e-commerce side of things is when an order comes in, we have our VA create the print file for whatever department it belongs to, and then she marks it in like a ShipStation account, and then I go in the next morning and buy the shipping for that product, and I print off the shipping label and the packing slip that would go with that gives all the information for that order. And then I group them together based on product type, department that they belong to, just different things like that, kind of my own discretion. And it kind of varies based on the time of year. Like in Q4, I might split things up a little bit more than I would in like the summer months. But I get all those together and then distributed them to the respective departments in the mornings. And then the NA side of things is any product that we get an order for that we don't actively stock. So for instance, we don't stock tie-dye items, but we have some clients that sell those. It's my responsibility to make sure that those get notated, that they need to be ordered, and then make sure that when they get ordered, that they get received properly, get sent to the correct department, and then that person knows, hey, this order needs to be done first because it's been sitting there for a while as we wait to order it and get it received. And I've developed a lot of different organization and management strategies to try to make sure that there aren't labels and stuff going missing and there aren't orders slipping through the cracks. And granted, there are some, but I think in any system, there will be one or two that slip through for whatever reason. But I think compared to what we started with back in 2020 to what we have now, I think we've reduced the amount of errors and mistakes and lost orders and misplaced labels significantly.
Yeah. Can you share with our audience maybe some of the systems that you've implemented to help with kind of this whole tracking these non-stocked orders or tracking all of these labels that are all over the place?
I can show you one that I made right here, actually. This is an order organizer. This is for all the orders that come in. Each section is labeled a specific thing. So you have today's orders, yesterday's, this week's, last week's, and 2 order NAs. So basically every morning I put stuff in today. People work on the today's orders. If by the end of the day they haven't completed them, they move all those labels up to yesterday. And then when they come in the next day, they work on yesterday's, even though there are labels in today's orders. And then on Friday, or if they don't get to them, they would move them up to this week's and then kind of fill this out. And then on Friday, everything that isn't done moves up to last week's. And then on Monday, when they come in, they just work on all of last week's orders until they get those. Yeah,
they start from the back and move forward basically all the time.
Yeah. And then this back here is the section for, hey, this is an item I don't have, but it has not been ordered yet. So it's called 2 order NAs. Right. And then as soon as that gets ordered, there's another organizer that says ordered NAs that sits there. And basically once it's in there, the production technician doesn't have to worry about that label until I give them goods. And then it's their responsibility to go through the ordered NA labels, figure out, hey, these 3 have come in. These 2 I'm still waiting on. Put the 2 back, work on the 3 first, get those packaged and out the door with the post office or whoever's, taking them, and then go back to working on the other orders. And then as far as NAs go, I just developed basically a spreadsheet that's you can print off, and it has pretty much every single item each department can possibly sell, from the most common items to stuff that sells once every year. And basically they just print it off, have it sitting in their department somewhere, usually on like their production table, and they just mark it with the items that they need ordered. And then once or twice a week, I'll come in and say, hey, I need your order sheet because I'm placing an order. They'll give it to me, and then I know exactly what they need based on that day. And then I just have a mental note of, hey, the last time they gave it to me was Tuesday. So on Friday, I probably need to go and get their order sheet again and just see what they need and get whatever place. And that goes for both products that they produce and also like the maintenance items. So inks, threads, all that stuff. There's 2 separate sheets per department.
So you kind of, we jumped a bullet point, I guess.
Oh, we did?
No, you're fine.
It's fine.
They kind of meld together. I was just going to read 3 and 4. Ensure all production departments submit daily stock and supply requests with final order numbers in the required time. And then 4 is purchase and monitor levels of daily stock and supplies. So you kind of talked about how you deal with the non-stock items. How do you make sure that we don't run out of items that we actually do stock? And maybe there's other things you want to talk about bullet point 3 and 4 that I just read. Feel free to, kind of share whatever else you want to on those.
Yeah, specifically for the apparel side of things, or at least the DTG side of things, we have a system called Kanban cards. It's a system that a lot of other businesses use. So basically, you just have a piece of laminated paper that says the item it's for. So for instance, you have a standard T-shirt, black, extra large. You put it in a specific spot. For instance, like for the shelves of T-shirts, you maybe put it on top of 2 T-shirts, and then you stack the rest of the stock on top of them. And then as the person is grabbing them, they whittle down on the stock. And as soon as they pull the one that reveals the card, they pull the card, put it in a basket, and then write down that, hey, I need, navy large. And then when they give me the order sheet, I order a specific amount that's specified on the Kanban card. And then when the stock gets in, I replace it back on the shelf. That prevents any items that we stock from hitting 0. And it varies based on popularity of item, how much sell in 1 week, and then things like color. We obviously stock a lot navy, then we do black, and so for like black, we even just got rid of the Kanban cards, and we just said, hey, we're going to order a case of black T-shirts and have a reserve case, and as soon as you open the reserve case, you just order another case. For the rest of the items, we have little laminated entire sheets that have all the stock items listed on it. And it has a threshold number. And it says, if you get below the threshold number, you need to order them. Because for like mugs and stuff, it wouldn't make sense to have a Kanban card because, you have to like stick it inside of the mug and pull the mugs a specific way. So it wouldn't work for those items. But I just tell a production technician, hey, at the end of the day, or when you're doing production, just keep an eye out. If you hit 12 or 6 or 3 of this item, you need to write it down on your sheet. And something that they kind of do every Thursday when they're doing cleaning, they'll take the sheet around and they'll just look over the stock items and just note if they missed anything. But they're pretty good about knowing these items sell well. So I just need to make sure I have enough of them at any given point. And if I don't, then I need to tell Tate and let him know that, hey, I need these ordered now because I'm going to run out.
Nice. So you mentioned a little bit about the production text. We have 6 different print methods here. Is that right? 6?
Yep.
Yeah.
So the second bullet point, the one that we kind of hopped over, is maintain knowledge for all production equipment and processes. So talk about, of course, what that means, but then kind of what it's been like trying to wrap your mind around 6 different print processes so that if a production member or a technician comes to you and says, hey, I don't know why this isn't working correctly, you have to have at least some semblance of an idea of, okay, well, let's try, A, B, and C first. If that doesn't work, then I have to go else or, call support, what have you. But talk about how that process has been with so many print processes. Like you said, it used to be just sublimation when you guys were in Longmont. Now it's everything else. So kind of share what that's been like.
It definitely was a kind of a struggle because when we moved in, it was November. So you're having the Q4 rush with all the e-commerce stuff. So I'm having to help make sure orders get out and then also learn all these print methods in this short amount of time from the people that are giving them to us before they leave after the end of Christmas. So that was definitely kind of a lot to swallow. But I think the biggest thing that I realized was that like these machines are made by companies that are successful for a reason, and someone out there has figured out how to make this product probably work. And it's just a matter of not freaking out and going, oh my God, it's never going to work. It's just, I don't understand how it's going to work because I've never done it before. And you just learn kind of piece by piece. I think especially with the embroidery machines, I would spend 4 hours on the phone with Melco going over the smallest of details that to me now seem very trivial. But back then I had no idea. And I would feel like, okay, cool, they're fixed. And then something else would go wrong. And I would be like, oh my gosh, how can something else go wrong? But the thing is that it's something else that I haven't learned yet. And it was bound to go wrong at some point because I hadn't learned how to deal with it. But now I know, hey, all these things go wrong. Here's a million things that we can do before we have to spend 4 hours on the phone with Melco. We can just figure it out ourselves. And that's been a huge confidence boost for me, just learning the machines. And I think over time, spending more time with them has allowed me to realize different things about them, like behaviors and how manufacturers intended for them to be used, because they all have kind of their own quirks, like, oh, some people call this, and some people call this, and learning that verbiage, learning the, behaviors of the machines and what they need has helped a lot. And then the biggest thing is just like, has been learning and understanding what the maintenance does. I think that is such an important thing for a production manager, not just doing the maintenance to do the maintenance, but understanding what the maintenance is actually doing with the machine has been so important to be like, hey, why is the machine doing this? Why is it producing this product poorly? And I can go, oh, that's because I know this maintenance prevents this problem. So when I see that problem, I can go, this is the maintenance you haven't done. And that has been like a huge help, because then I don't have to spend hours of my time troubleshooting something. I just know straight up, hey, this is what you need to do. Go do that. If it's still doing the problem, then, okay, we have a bigger problem. I know I need to go call somebody and be like, okay, what's going on?
Right.
And that saved me a lot of time and just, general lack of stress from dealing with the machines breaking.
Yeah. And I know that can be so frustrating when, I remember in the summer when you were we didn't have an embroidery person and you were that embroidery person. I know it was painful, but the knowledge you gained being in that room, I think really, really helped you understand, to your point, okay, when I hear this noise on the embroidery machine, I know it's going to do this. It's the same thing with, the DTG. Oh, I see streaks in the print. That means this. Or the UV machine. All of these machines that you've had to spend time with, it's enhanced your knowledge, and you can kind of diagnose to where we're not always calling somebody every single time. What the next one on the list is to mentor the junior production staff on appropriate safety and efficient equipment and machine operation. Now, that technically could be 2 bullet points, because you're talking about safety, which is totally different than efficiency. But I know they're both, we don't have anything that's like super dangerous. You could I guess you could smash your hand in a heat press, but if you're putting your hand inside of the heat press and pulling down, you have other issues. But I would assume. So safety could be one thing, but I know you've spent a lot of time, at least on the efficiency, because that's the drum I beat all the time as the owner of the company. I want to make sure we're as efficient as we can be. Talk about how you've mentored some of our production staff in the efficiency, and if you can think of something in the safety as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can knock out the safety. The first thing that comes to mind with safety was we bought some racks from was it like a Sears or something that was closing down, and we installed them in our warehouse, and they have these ladders you have to climb up. And my first thought was, I don't want anyone climbing these until we get posted safety rules and a liability waiver written up and have everyone that's going to use it sign it.
Yeah.
And so we have these posted rules. And there have been times where I've told people like, hey, you're not following the rules. You're carrying too much up the ladder, carrying too much down the ladder at a time. Like, I understand it can be annoying to follow those, but you got to follow them because they're there for a reason. And I don't want anybody like, seriously injuring themselves trying to bring down 6 shirts at a time instead of 2, but as far as the efficiency goes, the biggest thing has just been making sure that when you're doing something else is getting done at the same time. Because a lot of these machines can operate after you send the job on their own and they don't need you to pay attention to them, So for the embroidery machine, you load the hat in and push the go button. And then for 6 minutes, it's sitting there and sewing as long as nothing goes wrong. During that 6 minutes, it's important that you're doing something else, whether it's hooping another hat or cleaning another hat or figuring out where the missing art for this order is or pulling the next day's worth of orders. For like a D2G, the peak efficiency is you can run one printer full time. We have 2 3070s, but you can run one printer full time and pre-treat at the same time and have enough stuff kind of like backlog pre-treated so that you can have the printer just constantly spitting out prints and be pre-treating stuff. I mean, making sure that people are doing that and staying on top of that rather than I'm going to pre-treat everything, then I'm going to go print everything, and in between each print for 30 seconds while it's spitting out, I'm just sitting there and doing nothing and twiddling my thumbs.
Right.
It's a lot harder now that we have the 3070 because it's just done, compared to the 2100, which was a lot, slower. But just doing things like that, making sure that like when something else is doing something, you're kind of doing 2 things at once, essentially. And that's easier said than done for some departments, like vinyl, you kind of have to pull everything and have it all ready. You kind of have to weed everything and have it all ready prior. You can't be like weeding and pressing at the same time. So that's kind of, temper your expectations per department, figure out what's reasonable and what's not reasonable. But just educating people on like, hey, this is what I expect because I can do it. And so if I can do it, I need you to be able to do it as a production tech because when I'm going out and quoting somebody or I'm talking to a potential client, I'm basically saying, oh yeah, we can get it done in a week because I know I can get it done in a week. And so I have to put my trust in you that you can do that too. And that's, my responsibility to make sure that they're trained well enough to know that, yeah, I can get this done in a week and have that confidence.
Yeah, I think that's huge, man. I think in leadership in general, it's always good to, and Jason and I would have this conversation a lot with But For Apparel where we would time ourselves. How many prints can I get done in an hour? And then that was the benchmark. Whatever he and I could do, either individually or together, was the benchmark we would set for someone working individually or together, because that's where they need to be. But also knowing that if they had a question, if they were unsure, it was like, no, we did it first, and whatever, we're not going to ask you to do something that we're not able to do. So that's the bar, which I think leadership in general is huge. In WWE, Vince McMahon, right? A couple WrestleManias ago, Rob Gronkowski showed up and took a fall from about 35 feet in the air. And Vince McMahon is a 70-something-year-old man at the time and said, Gronk, I would never ask you to do something I wouldn't. And he got up there and he threw himself off the whatever scaffolding and took the fall himself. So that's like an extreme example of,
I'm not jumping off 35-foot thing for you guys. I'm just putting that out there right now. Not doing that.
So
to give me a significant pay raise.
all of that to say, it's a good leadership characteristic to be able to tell the people that you're managing and that you're overseeing and leading, hey, I get it. It seems a little stressful, but I'm not asking you to do something that I haven't done myself or am not able to still do. So I think that's a huge thing to keep in mind for those listening. When you're working with people, it really helps if you are able to communicate that to them. So, yeah. So the
And
next
the flip
bullet
side of
point.
that, I
Yeah, go
just wanted
ahead.
to add the
Yeah,
flip
yeah,
side to that is as a production manager, and it's awkward because of it's not necessarily awkward. It's just a different dynamic than I think some people have because of the father-son relationship. But it's also important as a production manager to be able to communicate that to your management, to the owners or the higher ups in the company, because
sure.
they can just see like, oh, why didn't this order get done? And to them, it's like they should have gotten done. And you understanding, no, this is the limit of what can feasibly be done. I put extra people on it to try to get it done faster, but there's only so much that you can be done in an 8-hour shift. And I'm
Yeah.
not trying to overwork my employees. I'm telling them, hey, make sure you take your breaks, make sure you go on your lunches and relax, and don't overwork yourself. It's important that you have the confidence in not only your own knowledge of the department, but also the confidence to back your techs and go, no, they did what they could. This job will get done at this point. And that includes like, hey, we thought we could get it done by this point, but these are some things that came up that prevented that. I take responsibility, but it's now going to be pushed back to this, and being able to just own up to that and be like, hey, look, management, this is just what it's going to be. And being able to communicate that and not be, I think this was a big thing for me, not be so attached personally to that production, because they're upset that the production didn't get done doesn't mean that they're upset with you. They're just upset that the job didn't get done in the expected amount of time. And that's reasonable for any business to be like, well, I'm upset because I thought it was going to get done now and it's not going to get done now. It's going to get done later. So I have to wait and I have to explain that to my client now. But just know that as long as it's not a consistent thing, they're not losing faith in you. They're just, verbalizing and expressing their upset over that, as you probably did, at some point to your text. You were like, oh, really? We're not getting this job done in time.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I got to deal with that. What is the reality of that now? So
I don't
Yeah.
I don't remember me ever like doing that ever, like being, oh my gosh, can't believe we're not getting this done. That's just so not like me.
Yeah, I was gonna ask,
comment.
No comment.
I'm here just so I don't get fined. Is basically your answer on that one. How do you? We'll move on to the job description, but since you kind of started that rabbit trail, what's your advice? As a production manager, and I know myself in this situation, you get a lot of, for lack of a better term, you get a lot of heat from both sides, from your techs, from the management, and from the client. How do you, or how have you been able to develop a thick skin, right? Like, it's not personal, it's business. Like you just said, I understand. But it still doesn't mean that in the moment, like I've had moments where I've been asked a question or something's gone completely wrong and I'm borderline on an anxiety attack. Okay. So you're just like, holy crap. Okay. I got to figure out a way to clear my head and look at this objectively and then be able to put out these fires. What's that been like for you as a production manager who has 1,000 questions from everyone involved in the scenario? Because I ask you questions. I try to get to a place where I'm not having to ask you questions because I understand you're being asked questions all of the time. So how has that process been for you, where you've been able to kind of disassociate in the non-sociopathic way?
It definitely has been kind of difficult. I mean, because it went from me being the only employee, so like, oh, I screwed up, I'm just gonna stay late for another 2 hours. I don't care, I'll just get it done. And then it's like, now I don't want to ask my production tech who has family to go home to, or friends to go hang out with, or plans to stay 2 hours late because something got screwed up. So that was like the first hurdle, was like realizing that, okay, there are other people's lives at stake that, I'm not privy to all the details of. So I got to be sensitive to that and realize that I have my allotted time, and maybe I can ask them every once in a while, like, hey, do you mind coming in? But kind of growing out of that mindset and realizing, okay, I got to deal with this in my allotted time. But the other thing has been, I think it's very important to keep a positive relationship with all the people that you're having contacts with.
Yeah.
Because if you have a good relationship with them, they're more likely to give you some slack and be willing to listen to you and understand, like, hey, this is not who we are as a company. It was just a mistake, or it was just too much on our plate, and we just bit off more than we could chew. So I think that I spend a lot of time trying to keep up good relations and ask a lot of questions of people just about like their personal lives, like, hey, how are you? How have you been? How was your day? Just little things like that, and try to keep those positive engagements going, so that when I do have to have those tough conversations, they know, hey, this isn't him. He's not just a jerk and just throwing his weight around and like, whatever, I'll get to you when I get to you. They realize that this is difficult for him too, and they have some sympathy there. And then I think the thing that I had a thought and I kind of lost it there. What was the last thing you said, Josiah? There was like the third, like something about developing thick skin about something.
Yeah, just not taking the process of getting asked questions, or whenever something goes wrong, inevitably somehow it can be, it's traced back to you, or from the tech, from management, from the customer. So how you've been able to be like, hey, it's not personal, it's business. I'm going to leave this at work. I'm not going to take it personally. That whole dynamic of the job.
Yeah, I specifically about the questions thing.
Yeah.
Before Josiah got hired, I was doing a little bit of the sales thing, and so I was dealing with customers asking the same questions, and I deal with like techs coming and asking me the same questions. And I think the thing that I had to realize was like, a lot of these people, they feel like, for me, there's like all 6 print methods encompass my whole world, and I have to monitor all of that. To them, for the client side of things, their shop is their whole world. So getting the shop perfect is so important to them. Or like the tech, just the DTG or just the embroidery is their whole world. They want to get that perfect. So to them, or to me, it's like this tiny little speck of garbage that I'm not even like, that's not even on my radar. But to them, it's this whole massive stain on half their world. And they're like, I need to know what I need to do about this. And so kind of looking at it from that perspective, I have to go, okay, I really need to like address this in the same level of urgency that I would. Like if 2 of my departments are down, that's the stress level that they're experiencing. Because they don't know, and they want it to be good, and they want it to be perfect, and they don't know what they don't know. So that's why they're coming to ask me a question. And so even if they've asked me before, it's like, okay, I'm going to tell you again. And eventually, I think through many months of working with the same people and building those relationships, eventually those questions die down because they feel like they've heard the same answer. So now they're like confident in knowing I can deal with this. And I think that builds their own confidence too, and being able to be like, this is what I need from you. And I can go, okay. Then that frees me up to not have to worry and kind of like feel like I have to micromanage.
Yeah, I think that's a universal, issue with leadership or management, because your fire that it's blazing for you, or not necessarily you, but also you, is only a small fire to me because I have a lot more stuff going on. And so for you, it's the same thing with your techs. That is a huge fire for them, but it's a smaller fire for you. I think that's just something we have to deal with in management. I think you really summed it up really nicely there, to where you have to put your, you have to wear their shoes, in a sense, and see, okay, this is really important for them. And so I need to take a minute and really focus on that. And I'm guilty of not doing that when you come to me with something that's a real big thing. And I'm like, yeah, but I've got these 7 other things or whatever. So I think that's really, really insightful. I was also going to say that I think you doing sales, or at least a small part, and dealing with customers, I think helped develop some of that and allowed you to see the other side of it, to where it perhaps like increased your awareness of the urgency for the customer, that because a lot of times production managers just kind of, they get locked away in the warehouse and then they never see customers. And so that is, again, using your analogy, that's their whole world. And so they don't care what's going on the other side in the front half of the building where the showroom is and where the sales are happening. But
Yep.
you having to kind of live in that world for a little bit gave you an insight that I don't know that a lot of production managers get to have. And I think it's improved your ability to kind of see things holistically as a business, as opposed to just, get the production done and that's it. And if a machine breaks, well, sorry, sales, too bad. We're dealing with this and it's a huge fire for us. You're able to, wear their shoes and kind of see it from their perspective a little bit, which is really cool.
Yeah. So next bullet point, we're almost to an hour here, Travis. How do you want to navigate?
We're not going to get through all this.
No, a part 2 maybe coming down. But which ones do you want to hit as we kind of go and wrap this one up? There's there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 left. Which ones do you want to hit next?
Let's knock these out. Coordinate the receiving of raw materials and delivery from delivery carriers and restocking. Coordinate the pickup of packed and final products for delivery to shipping carriers.
Yeah.
So in and out. How do you do it, Tate? What's the magic sauce?
It's pretty much we get a delivery pretty much every day from UPS. It's just whoever hears the door get knocked on or the doorbell answers it, takes the boxes off the truck with the guy, puts them down, and gives him anything that's going out with UPS that day. They sit there, and then I print off all of the order confirmation and shipping confirmations that each supplier sends you whenever you place an order with them. And that's our record of what I specifically ordered. And then what I do is I'll go and open each box and just pull out each item one by one. With some things like mugs, it's super simple. Boom, open it. It's a box of mugs. Cool, done. With apparel, they stack in 200 things that are all different colors, sizes, types of garments, different things. One's for this order, one's for this order, one's restocking. So that takes a lot longer. So I sit there and go, okay, yellow shirt, XL. Okay, I ordered that. Cool. And today, for example, there was a mix-up. They sent us a bunch of larges instead of XL. So I have to note that on the sheet, take that, and I emailed our rep and was like, hey, can I get these replaced with the correct size? And then, if it's one item, usually they'll let you keep it. But if it's multiple items, they'll be like, hey, you need to send that back. So then I got to coordinate, hey, I need the return label. I need the RMA number before I can send it back to you because I'm not paying for that shipping. And then once an item or once an order or a box or whatever is fully received, we have a system called RAF, which is just received in full. I write that on the sheet, my initials, so that people know that I was the one that received it. So if other people do that, they put their initials and then just the date that you received it. And then that goes into a filing cabinet and just sits there. So we know that we received those items fully. And then every couple of months, those go away. And then as far as outgoing, pretty much every department has a packing station built into the area that it's in. And it's up to the production tech to make sure that those items go out. I usually roughly kind of guesstimate that the post office will be here around 2 every day is kind of my rough time, but there's sometimes here at noon, there's sometimes here at 4, kind of just depends. But I just, make sure that people get their labels and get the production done. And then usually by about noon, I'm going around to people going, hey, where are you at? Can we start, bagging stuff? With DTG, because we've been doing a lot of DTG lately and we get a lot of new clients doing that, I've been stepping in and kind of saying, hey, just keep printing. I'm going to bag what you have so you can keep printing and not get behind. And just doing that. But a lot of it is just getting the stuff in the boxes, putting them in the giant UPS bag or post office bags, putting them by the door. And then the big thing is making sure that the EODs or the end of day forms are printed out. For anybody that doesn't know about those, it'll make the post office people love you and not hate you. And just making sure those get printed out. And it's pretty simple. I mean, it's just making sure that people are doing that or getting done at least. And then whenever the post office gets here, just open the door for them. I usually help bring out all the bags just to be nice. We do sort bags by first class, priority, express, all that. Give them to all of them. Make sure keep the post office bags stocked, the big ones. And then just once everything's done, I tell people just work on production. Don't worry about bagging anything until tomorrow again. Just try to, those last 2-3 hours of the day, just work on bagging stuff.
Yeah. To be fair, some of this stuff is because of our size. We don't have the budget for a warehouse manager. And so you're taking on some of those responsibilities that a warehouse manager would take on. So just to put a little bow on that, EOD is for the post office, the end of day form. Basically, it allows the post office to scan one barcode and receive all of the data for that day's shipments. And they love you for that.
They do.
Yeah. And then, and then the other thing I was going to say was you also do take a lot of time when in the morning, particularly on like bulk orders, bigger orders, things of that nature. You are not just going, all right, post office for everything. You're like checking to see if it's cheaper to ship FedEx or UPS and what the time and speed, it's not like every single order you're checking that, but you are checking that for the ones are larger. And since the post office has recently raised a bunch of their rates, that really is important. I think I've seen stuff that, would cost $50 with the new post office rates that costs, $18.50 at UPS. So of course we're going to ship that UPS because it doesn't make any sense to, give the post office an extra $35 for a convenience fee because they're going to pick it up when they pick everything else up. But for our kind of bread and butter single item type things, the post office really is the best option. So your knowledge of that, of that shipping and receiving is, again, kind of a warehouse manager type role, but it's something that you've been doing and have done really well at. So we're at 56 minutes. Josiah, what do you think? Should we wrap this up?
Yeah, let's put a bookmark here where we're at, and maybe we'll do a part 2 covering the last. I think there was 6 bullet points left in the job description. So hopefully this was in depth for you guys, kind of getting an understanding of what a production manager does. Like we've said before when we cover these kind of topics, even if you don't have a production manager, you're not at that point where you're hiring someone like that. Maybe you're just outsourcing and drop shipping everything. Conversations like this and insight like this can help you understand the process that your supplier is going through inevitably because they have a production manager or they have a warehouse manager. And so it can kind of give you some insight to give them some grace and understanding when things are going crazy and, well, why is that printer so broken and your UV printer is broken? I mean, there's been days where there was a day specifically where 23070s were both on strike, called into work. They decided not to show up. There's been a UV printer sitting in the middle room that's been broken since I think you guys got the thing. So there's things that happen that cause bottlenecks in productions that sometimes you as a customer or you as someone that is utilizing that person as a drop shipper doesn't understand. And the production manager is the person trying to put out fires for you. So it kind of helps you gain an understanding and an appreciation of what all goes into it. So like we said before, we will go into a part 2 in a later episode. But until then, we're going to go straight into the outro. So Tate, you get to hear me rattle off the information that I've rattled off for an 87 episodes. And I still fumble and forget sometimes. We'll see how we do this particular time. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for listening. If you have questions for us, if you have questions for Tate, you know what I'm going to tell you to do. Join the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/print-on-demand-cast. Good news, there is a Squarespace site being made as we speak. So one day, very soon, you will no longer have to do the slashes and the groups and the other extraneous actions to get to where you want to be, and that's the Print on Demand Cast Facebook group. You can ask us questions. If you have a question for Tate, let us know. I don't think he has a Facebook because his generation thinks Facebook is for old people. So we will relay the questions that you might have to Tate on the Facebook group for you. So still join the conversation, join the family. Would love to see you guys there. That's how we connected with Kate. And we also connected with her on Instagram, instagram.com/printondemandcast. Subscribe, give us a follow. If you have questions, you can DM us there as well, like Kate did, and we'd be happy to talk to you. We have a YouTube channel. If you want to get the video for this every Friday around 3 o'clock Mountain Time, we publish the video, youtube.com/theprintondemandcast. If you want video early, go to Spotify. You have it on Wednesdays. You can watch the video there as well. If you have a question for us, if social media isn't your thing, or maybe you don't have a Facebook like Tate, you can email us info@makeyourmarkdesign, makeyourmark.design. Still getting used to it. My default is what4apparel.com, which is no longer a thing. info@makeyourmark.design, and let us know if you guys have questions. We'd be happy to chat with you there as well. And as always, wherever there are podcasts, the PODcast is there for you. iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Anchor, Google, all of the things were there for you. But if you happen to be listening on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts, sorry, it's always going to be iTunes to me, on Apple Podcasts, you can leave us a 5-star review and feedback. Let us know what you're thinking, what you're liking, what you want to hear more of, your favorite dad joke, your favorite host, Team Travis, Team Josiah. Don't start those hashtags, but if it makes you leave a review, then I'll go with it. I don't even care. And you can rate us as well on Spotify at the top of the feed, a 5-star review. No feedback allowed, but you can still drop that 5-star. If you do that on iTunes or on Apple Podcasts, we'll shout you out on the show because we always appreciate your feedback. Travis, anything else before we send them home happy?
Just want to say thank you to Tate for staying late today. You can hear more about his story on episode 43, as well as hear some of his magic question and answers. And that was it, though. But thanks, Tate, for being on the show. I think this was really good. I'm looking forward to finishing this off very soon. I don't know if it'll be next week. I don't know if it'll be the week after. I don't know when it'll be, but I don't have to know.
Can we talk him into staying late for 2 weeks in a row? We don't know.
Boom.
But
for money and beer, yeah, sure.
Well, he kind of buried the lead, gave you the answer there, but tune in next week to find out. But until then, for Tate, for Travis, I'm Josiah. We'll see you next time right here on the Print on Demand cast.
See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.